With motorcycles, things occasionally go wrong. Maybe you crashed and you tore the ligaments in your shoulder like I did, or maybe you cross-threaded or over-tightened a bolt on your bike and you stripped the threads out, which I have also done. It's a terrible feeling, but thankfully it's not the end of the world. And today, I'm going to outline your best options for repairing internal threads, like the ones on your engine cases, frame, and even your spark plug and drain plugs. We're going to cover methods from something as simple as JB Weld to as specialized as a TimeSert, and we're going to test the strength of the repairs. Let's open up the shop manual. Ooh, it sucks to look into a hole and see chaos where there used to be neat rows of threads. But if you've only misaligned a few threads, say because you started to cross-thread a bolt, then the first thing you should try is a thread chaser. A chaser is designed to straighten and reform crooked threads. It also works great for cleaning up rusty or dirty threads. You just put some oil on the tool, spin it in, making sure it is square to the workpiece, and if you're lucky, the hole will look a little less ugly when you're done. If you've got a set of taps on hand, you might just think you can use those to clean up the threads, but I would not recommend it. Taps are designed to cut threads in a freshly drilled hole, and compared to a thread chaser, they've got a pretty aggressive design. They've got a longer taper on the nose, wider flutes, and sharp teeth, so rather than realigning the threads, they might just slice them off. If the threads really are sliced off, or more accurately pulled out, as we're dealing with on the Honda's oil filter cover here, then a thread chaser isn't going to help you. In that case, you need a little device called a Helicoil, which is a coiled stainless steel wire insert that restores the hole to its original diameter and thread pitch. Helicoil kits are readily available at auto parts stores and cost anywhere from $15 to $50 depending on the size and whether or not it comes with a specially sized drill bit and tap driver, which this kit does not. To install a Helicoil, you drill out the hole to the appropriate size, which will be listed on the tap. Then you tap the hole to prepare it for the insert, making sure it's square to the workpiece and applying steady pressure as you turn to get it started. You'll want to oil the tap so it cuts smoothly and back it out every few turns to clear the shavings. And if you're worried about debris getting somewhere it doesn't belong, you can smear grease in the flutes to help capture it. Once you've tapped the hole, clean it out with a jet of carb cleaner or compressed air. Now, put a Helicoil insert on the installer and spin it into the proper depth, which is a quarter to a half turn below the surface of the hole. Finally, use a drift or a screwdriver to break the tang off the bottom of the coil, and don't forget to fish it out. Helicoils are awesome, and if you install them in a soft material like aluminum, like we did here, then the repaired threads are actually going to be stronger than stock. I've used Helicoils a bunch, and they're probably going to be your go-to for thread repair, but there are certain applications where you'll be better off using a device called a TimeSert. A TimeSert is a solid body insert rather than a coiled wire like a Helicoil. These are usually a special order item and they're more expensive, like $75 to several $100 depending on the size. What I like about TimeSerts is that there's a flange at the top that sits flush with the workpiece, and they're available in very specific lengths. That makes them ideal for holes where a tight seal and specific depth is critical, like a spark plug or, I don't know, maybe a drain plug? Yeah, I intentionally over-tightened the drain plug on the little CBR here, and I'm fairly certain that by stripping this drain plug intentionally, I'm breaking some mechanic's Hippocratic oath. Makes me feel pretty uncomfortable. Oh, there it goes. That is such a terrible feeling. It hurt my soul to do it, but even this mangled drain plug hole can be fixed with a TimeSert. As with Helicoils, you install TimeSerts by first drilling out the damaged hole, but then you use the included counterbore to cut a seat for the insert's flange. Then you tap the hole, put an insert on the installer, and screw it in. When the flange bottoms out, the installation tool will tighten up in a way that may give you flashbacks of stripping the threads in the first place. Don't worry, that's the tool flaring the threads at the bottom of the insert so it's locked in. And once it's easy to turn again, you're good. Just unscrew the tool. At this point, you might be wondering, how do you keep all the shavings out of the engine? And that's a good question. When you're working on a drain plug, it's actually pretty easy. You put grease on all the tools to capture the shavings, and then you can use oil to flush the sump, and then finally the oil filter is going to capture anything that's left. For spark plug holes, however, that's a different story. There's really no guaranteed way to keep the shavings out of the cylinder, so your best bet is to remove the cylinder head and then do the repair. It's a huge pain in the ass, but it's what you gotta do. If helicoils and TimeSert sound too difficult and expensive, there is another option you might be tempted to try. This is JB Weld. It's a two-part epoxy that is steel reinforced, and according to the package, it can be drilled and tapped. But so can cheddar cheese. So how is this gonna hold up on your bike? To find out how JB Weld and our other repair options hold up, I made this fixture with a series of 6mm holes like you'd see on your engine cases or control perches. There's a hole tapped right into the aluminum, a hole with a helicoil insert, a hole with a TimeSert, and an oversized hole that I filled with JB Weld, allowed to cure, then drilled and tapped. This size fastener usually calls for 4 to 7 foot-pounds of torque. So we spun in some extra strong grade 8 bolts, started at 3.5 foot-pounds, and worked our way up from there. The threads in the aluminum held firm, with the bolt giving way at 20 foot-pounds. The helicoil was stronger than the bolt as well, with another fastener failure at 20 foot-pounds. The TimeSert pulled out at 14 foot-pounds, which was a little surprising, but it's still twice the maximum rated torque for a fastener of this size, so I'm not concerned about it. Then there's JB Weld, which stripped out right away at just 3.5 foot-pounds. I'm not knocking JB Weld. It's got its uses. I would use it to scab a hole in a clutch cover out on the trail, or maybe fix the threads in a turn signal housing. But as far as repairing the threads for bolts on your bike, it just doesn't have enough torque, even for the smallest fasteners on your side cases. Whichever technique you decide to use, to increase your chances of a successful repair, I'd suggest practicing the technique on a scrap part before pointing a drill bit at your bike. To summarize, know that all is not lost if you strip the threads out of a bolt hole in your bike. If you can't straighten screwed up threads with a chase, then you're going to want to use a helicoil kit. That's the one that's more affordable and readily available. Or you could use a TimeSert. That's going to be a more expensive and more involved repair, but it's also a little more refined. Whichever route you choose, or if you decide to just take it to a professional mechanic or machinist, at least now you know that there are solutions to fixing stripped out threads.